my tweet against Ed Markey that when he said something about being respectful of women and running a pro women campaign. Do you think me referencing the Chappaquiddick incident, would that be harassment and taking advantage of a bad family?
Chappaquiddick, let me ask this. You're gonna laugh at me for this. What happened there? I've heard of it. I've never searched it up.
So pretty much what happened was,
this,
yeah. It's kind of like, it's older. What happened was, I think Ted Kennedy was dating somebody and drove
the car,
and through negligence drove the car off a bridge.
Well, Ed Markey's also had a drinking problem as well to bring up. You realize that, right? Ed Markey came in the news a lot for abusing his wife in the early 80s and late 80s. So I understand Ted Kennedy literally killed someone, but the same thing is also in regard. I mean, Kennedy's Markey. I'm going to search it up right now. Ed Markey.
Let's see. Margaret Markey, a former Queen's. I don't see anything about what you're saying there, and that's a pretty serious accusation.
He did have a drinking problem back then.
I mean, yeah, if you have a drinking problem and you go through recovery, that's not something you should be shamed for. It's not very progressive of you.
No, it's not. I'm not talking about that. So I'm talking about that was one of the reasons why he supposedly was having an abusive relationship with someone.
Yeah, I don't see any evidence. I'm looking at that, but I don't see any.
Also, in regards to the Telecommunications Act, I'm not trying to move on. I just found the thing here. What the act meant to do was let anyone enter any communication business. He voted no against that, and that actually wouldn't have not been bad. And the reason why it wouldn't have been bad is because there were some small company back then. There were some small companies back then in Western Massachusetts that would have telephone towers, very small, that also allowed for Wi-Fi access on them. Like back then, I was reading an article actually that there was a newspaper station out in Springfield, to be exact, that they had what do you call those? Like the not telephone tower, but like the towers they have for like radio stations, etc., that type of stuff. And so what they did with that is they said, we're going to put a cell tower up and we're going to allow for a free public hotspot for Wi-Fi to be put up onto it. And the Telecommunications Act ended up getting passed, which allowed it. But the fact of the matter is, what's going on now with it is that there's a lot of underlying problems with it. It's almost like the crime bill. A lot of these places.
And the thing about the crime bill is a lot of reason why people voted for the crime bill was there was a lot of poison pills in that, almost like there was the Violence Against Women Act was also part of that. Like a lot of generally good stuff was part of that. And the question was, are you willing to? And I think that's also probably why Bernie voted for it. Is the question was, are you willing to weigh one for the other? And that's kind of the dirty part of politics. But it's yeah, Biden kind of put that in with the Violence Against Women Act, and he could be like, I passed the Violence Against Women Act, man. I think it's more of an excuse
as to why he voted for it. I think he knew that it was going to hurt the African American community, and I honestly wouldn't be shocked if he did it because of the fact that it was.
What do you mean? Who?
Well, Biden, in the sense that I think he knew that bill was going to hurt African American communities.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
He didn't really care.
Definitely. I'm not saying that as a defense of Biden who wrote the bill, but people who vote for that. And I think it's a big thing. I think it's a big thing about it says a lot more about Biden that he tried to force people to pick a side against Violence Against Women Act. Why would you not want to protect women from violence? That's obviously that established very, very key protections that are still very much in place today. But on the other side, you have something awful like that crime bill, and that's been probably. I think if Trump probably played his cards right a little bit better, as he could be hitting Biden for that. And that kind of brings me into what I want to talk about. We talked about Massachusetts for a long time, but I just want to say quickly before we go, Mermel is winning. I just looked it up. She's a pro Green New Deal, pro Medicare for All candidate, which is good, at least according to her website. And unfortunately, though, another very great progressive, Stanley, is in, I believe, fifth place with 9% of the vote, 9.9% of the vote there. But yeah, Jessie Mermel wins. Hopefully Jess Mermel. Hopefully she'll be good in Congress. And any Medicare for All supporting person who puts that on there, or any Green New Deal supporting person, is fine with me. But yeah, I do want to kind of switch a little bit over to a very, very, probably the biggest election, most important election of them all, which is the presidential election. And there has been a lot of rhetoric that we've seen. But the lot of rhetoric that we've seen from people. I mean, I've seen a lot of stories about it. I felt the feeling in the pit of my stomach. The race is tightening up.
I know.
Is it true?
Awful. Is it true? I think that it is in certain. I think Michigan, it definitely is tightening up like really badly, and I think like states like Pennsylvania, I think are fine. Arizona, I think, is fine with Biden. I think Wisconsin and Michigan, and I mean North Carolina, he doesn't really need, so I'm not going to mention North Carolina, but like Wisconsin and Michigan are definitely tightening up a little bit.
Georgia
scarily
is probably going to definitely 100% go to Trump. I think at this point.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think at this point it definitely is. I mean, I think look, there was a recent poll that came in from Georgia. Biden was up by 1, but I don't believe it. I think that it's going to be a tight race. I just don't see it actually happening. Oh, wait a second. What is this? Oh, thank God. I thought that was my consensus map. So the consensus map so far in 270 to win says that it's going to be they're putting it as Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania as lean for Biden. Now, even if Biden doesn't get Wisconsin, which is like the state that many people think he may not win, or if he doesn't get Michigan, he's going to get Arizona most likely, I believe. And if he doesn't get one of the other, or even if he sadly doesn't even get both, I think that wasn't really he's not the focus on most. I think he's not the focus on both those states in the coming days. I believe didn't he go there for like an event? Which state did he go to in the recent days? I know he went to one of the battleground states. Was it Pennsylvania? I think it was, right?
I do know he had a I forget. But I do remember
an awful
he had a rally recently.
A freaking rally that was littered with gaffes, as it usually is.
Yeah. Oh, he had a recent speech. I know that about like that was really something. Like to me, that shows like that him coming out there and like with this whole business about like violence and looting and stuff like that. And again, really kind of annoyed that we don't have Chase on to talk about this because they would be a great voice to add the conversation all throughout this stuff. But like it's really not that inspiring when you have Joe Biden coming out there and he did denounce the looters, but even whatever he says, like you look at him, like the way he's speaking, and like he's like, I forget the way he said it, but it was just like, we gotta fix it. Come on, man. And again, that's not to make fun of a stutter, but like to make the way he's just like, he's not speaking, he's not like enunciating, is what I'm saying there. Like it's very, very disturbing. Like this is something that's a big, this is a big part of it. A lot of people are going to be voting on these issues, and I think a lot of people are going to be talking about this riot. Like it's going to completely animate the elections stuff that's going on in Portland. I mean, we've seen a person shot, 2 people killed by Kyle Rittenhouse, a person shot who looked to be a Trump supporter, don't know really by who yet in Portland. Like it's chaos, and I think it scares a lot of people and a lot of suburban people where this election will be decided. So him coming out there, we'll play a clip here for this from the speech for Biden here right now. So what do you just say about the rioting?
Rioting is not protesting. Looting is not protesting. Setting fires is not protesting. None of this is protesting. It's lawlessness, plain and simple. And those who do it should be prosecuted. Violence will not bring change. It'll only bring destruction. It's wrong in every way. It divides instead of unites. Destroys businesses, only hurts the working families that serve the community. It makes things worse across the board, not better. No, it's not what Dr. King or John Lewis taught, and it must.
There's kind of a little more kind of coherent denunciation there from Joe Biden, but there is one clip that everyone's been playing that unfortunately most people are going to see about that kind of. I'll play it for you in a moment as soon as I can find it, but it is. I mean, this response here, this issue about the rioting and how the Biden campaign is handling it? What do you think about that?
I think that what Biden is trying to do here, which is somewhat strategically good, but at the same time strategically horrible given the fact of what we've seen so far with elections this year, is he's trying to appeal to the dissatisfied moderate / Republican voters, independent voters as well, including that, who are dissatisfied with Trump, but are fearful of someone basically saying that they are completely for the idea of the protest, because I think didn't Biden come out like against the idea of like protesting at all, if I'm correct, or am I was I reading something incorrect?
I think he stopped short of doing that, because I think the Democrats, in the same way like the NBA does, yeah. And I think it's been called by the New York Times. Joe Kennedy officially lost the Senate primary race to Ed Markey. It's the first loss by a Kennedy in a Massachusetts election, which is really pretty astounding in a statewide, any Massachusetts race. So, it'll be interesting to see how he reacts to that. But he's
actually already reacting to it.
Oh,
but,
do we
in
have
regards to there's a video right now, there's a live video on his because I follow his Twitter.
Maybe we can listen into that.
Sure.
I will be able to. Oh, it looks like Jake Oshensloch. However you say that. Jesse Mermel's lead over Jake Oshensloch. Kloss is down to
like 20. Auchincloss. I don't know.
Auchincloss is down to 23-21 with plenty of relatively Auchincloss strong southern end districts. Southern end of the districts is still outstanding. So, that is from Dave Wasserman. So we'll be keeping an eye on that very, very closely. Then we will. All right. So we'll pull up this Joe Kennedy and see what he has going to be saying.
To see where the next fight takes you.
I guess people wouldn't know Ed Markey's record as good as I do.
With all that you have built here.
I'm not really shocked though.
Okay, it's not a very clear video there. Let's see here.
Yeah, it's a little bit of
it's very low
flurry
stream.
Yeah.
Audio wise, but we'll try and get some of the try and get some audio for you of his.
To my family.
All right, we'll get the full audio for that in just a moment, but anyway, back to what you were saying there about Biden. We'll try and get some Kennedy concessions and maybe some Alex Morris concessions for you to play, to send your way as well.
Yeah, but more in regards to where Biden is, I believe that Biden is really taking not really a hardcore approach to it, and not in the sense of like hardcore like Trump, but in hardcore in the sense of it's more like platitude based, in my opinion. I don't know if you agree with me, Spencer, but like from what I'm hearing, from what he says, it's just him saying words to like sound all flowery, like, as a secular talk likes to say a lot about Joe Kennedy. I don't know if you've ever seen that episode when he says that about Joe.
Yeah, I've seen. Yeah, that definitely does sound like something he would say. But Kyle Clancy.
I think more in regards to like what Biden is saying. I think that he's just really saying things to make himself sound good. But I think he's also trying to play the safe middle ground in this approach, which I don't really think is really good.
Yeah, I think the biggest part of it, like what Trump is trying to do, right, is like say to suburban voters that he's most worried about losing, because that's really who the Democrats are targeting at this point. They've completely given up on any kind of like working class support. But he's trying to, I think, say to them, like, you have like the stuff that's happening in Portland, the lawlessness, the rioting, the looting, like, and of course they'll have you believe that like places like New York City and Washington D.C. are like hellscapes and there are fires burning